Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Well, I'm now joined by our resident economist, Marc Coleman. Marc, this week Ireland forecasted the highest gross domestic product in Europe. But does GDP actually butter any parsnips?
So the GDP economy, of course, is the large corporations who have benefit from the low corporation tax rate and who have the personnel and the staff to deal with the crippling bureaucracy of operating in the Irish system. So it is great news that our multinational economy is doing so well. But the question is, does that benefit the domestic economy or does it go through it like grain through a goose? One interesting phenomenon is that now the multinational side of our economy may be becoming so powerful and so strong that it's actually having a negative impact on the domestic economy. And let me explain three ways where that could be happening. The more big data centres and big pharma companies and big financial services centres you have in Ireland, the more infrastructure you need, the more labour you need, the more energy you need. Those demands are arguably pushing the capacity, the logistical capacity of the Irish economy to the brink, with the effect that small companies are facing astronomical price rises in everything from the cost of staff to insurance to energy. The second impact, of course, is it's taking skills away from the domestic economy because domestic companies cannot afford to pay the wages and salaries that the big players in the multinational scene can. And the third impact that it's happening is, of course, all the government TDs and ministers understandably want to be seen with the big power CEOs in the multinational stage. Unfortunately, that's resulting in the multinational sector, not through its own will, it doesn't want this, but it's getting a disproportionate share of attention and government thinking. And unfortunately, the poor old domestic economy representatives just don't have the clout to shout loud enough. An example of where things are really going wrong, I think, Karl, is I have a lot of respect for Pascal Donoghue. I think he's a brilliant performer, but I think he made a huge misjudgment this week when he came out and he was mentioning that we should be running a budget surplus and that the government is great because it's run a budget surplus in the last 10 years. But actually, this is multinational thinking because, in fact, if you've rapid population growth and if you've rapid growth in private sector investment, what the government should be doing is not running a government budget surplus. It should actually be running a capital-driven deficit, because if your population is growing rapidly and your multinationals are investing like gangbusters in the economy, the government needs to be investing in infrastructure to keep pace with that population growth. And it is not only normal to be running a deficit under those circumstances, it's positively healthy, provided you're getting value for money on the procurement side. So really, the fact that the government thinks it should have been running a surplus in the last 7 or 8 years leads me to believe that whoever's advising Pascal does not really understand the dynamics of our economy right now, which is massive, massive multinational investment, creating bottlenecks, creating logistics problems, creating price pressures. The response to it is not running a surplus, it's running a deficit, and it's massive investment on the public side. Not wasteful current spending, but actual capital spending, and it's reforming the procurement sector so that we get value for money out of that investment, unlike the National Children's Hospital, where we saw, the budget is already 1 billion gone. So this GDP number, we'd all love to be proud of it, but it tells a big story about where I think, and many other economists think, policy has really gone wrong in the last 7 to 8 years. And the government now has 2 years to correct that. But to correct it, it really has to correct its thinking, and it needs to be getting advice, I would say, from a very different quarter than it has done in recent times.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was our resident economist, Marc Coleman. And Marc will be back with us again next Saturday to share more of his economic analysis.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast